Hello everybody. In today's video we are going to be working in my Traveler's Notebook journal. This is my personal journal insert. This is where my in-depth journaling goes about the things that we're doing in our lives right now. And the supplies that I am using are supplies from my March Patreon kits. Now, I make bulk kits every month for Patreon, so by the time all the kitting is done and everything has been sent off, there's really not a lot left over, which is why I've not really done this in the past, but I happen to have a few bits left over, just enough to sort of play around with, and decided to use some of them in my Traveler's Notebook. This is my standard size Traveler's Notebook from Sea Salted Paper, and it is a junk journal style insert. There's a bunch of different paper, all kinds of different paper. There's ledger and different kinds of stationery and all kinds of vintage bond and onion skin and everything you can imagine. It's just a really good collection of really old good paper. And I've enjoyed using it. I have not used an insert like this in the past, so I have really enjoyed using it, but it can get a little bit tricky sometimes with the paper, depending on what kind of paper it is. I can sometimes only write on one side as opposed to being able to write on both, but it's neither here nor there. It's a very thick insert. There's a lot of paper, and I've already gotten January, February, and March into it, and I'm barely halfway through it, so it's definitely getting its use for sure. I definitely wouldn't say that I journal every day in this insert, but most of it goes in here. But like I said, these are some little bits left over from the March Patreon kits. I did a engineering architecture kind of vibe with it. I was including a lot of different kinds of grid papers. I included many different styles of blueprinting and architecture type drawings and engineer drawings. These things are really difficult to find because engineers tend to hold on to their drawings. And so finding things like that is really difficult, especially to find it in bulk so that I can make kits out of it. So I've definitely been collecting a lot of this stuff for probably close to 3 years, trying to make sense of it all. And I'm glad that I stuck it out because the end result was really good. If you saw my reel over on Instagram a couple weeks ago, you will have seen all of that. This video is going to go live for my patrons first, so hopefully they'll have their kits by the time they see this, but yeah, so if you want to look at that reel, you can definitely get an idea of what went into my biggest kit. I did add another big blueprint from this actual blue paper that I found after I did that reel. So I really loved that I found that randomly, and I'm glad that I hadn't already sent them. I had already packaged everything, but I hadn't sealed or addressed anything, so I was able to quickly add in bits of that blueprint paper, and I was super happy to do so. It wasn't the cheapest thing I've ever bought, but I was really excited to be able to include it for my patrons, and that's one of the benefits, I guess. Anyway, so like I was saying, sometimes it can take a really long time to make these kits make sense, and luckily for me, I have the patience and the vision that I want to execute, and this was definitely one of those kits for sure. I have a little bit left over of the little bits that I'd included. I didn't have any postage left, so I'm stuck with these like 2 kind of lame looking postage stamps. And then I only had 2 tickets left and a couple pieces of the circle punched paper that I did from engineer's grid paper and engineering drawings. And so I was happy that I had those, but I definitely wish I had more of the smaller bits, which is why I end up tearing a lot of the bigger pieces. And basically what I'm doing is I'm using these bigger pieces as like a base to be able to add on top of. And the goal with this was not to complete the spread. It was just sort of to lay the base, because I do like to add things in from my life, my everyday life, into these journals. And so the goal is to not make it a finished product. It's just to sort of give it some character, so that if I wanted to add anything to that particular layout that I came into contact with that day or that week, I can easily do so. And that's basically what I'm doing now. I'm just adding enough just to give it some character, but not enough to complete it if I didn't really want it to be. But yeah, so I cut that ticket down because I liked the image on the back of the ticket better, but it wasn't printed perfectly center, so I just trimmed around the image so that I could still use that ticket. A lot of times with these antique tickets, I wouldn't even say vintage, these antique tickets have really beautiful designs on the back, and sometimes they're prettier than the front, and I have been known to have a difficult time choosing, and this was definitely one of those times where instead of just using the image as it was presented, I decided to flip it over and cut around it so that I could have the prettier image available to use. And you just have to sort of give yourself the freedom to alter things to make it work for what you're doing and not just accept it at face value, which I know can be really difficult, especially when you're using old paper and old products. It can be kind of painful to rip and tear and cut away things, but I am of the mind where if it doesn't work for you, you must make it work somehow. And I'm not attached to these things. There are some things that I'm very attached to when it comes to paper, and some things I try to preserve and I keep for my personal collection and hang on the wall or frame or do all that, or put it into a box and forget about it because I just don't have the heart to do what I do. But I have enough and I can source pretty easily to use these things freely. And I encourage you to do the same, because there really isn't much out there that isn't replaceable. There truly really isn't. And if you're buying it for just a few dollars online, or you're getting it in the mail from a pen pal, then you should definitely not be afraid to use it, because that obviously means it's not one of a kind or irreplaceable. So definitely don't be afraid to use your supplies. I am a big advocate of that, and I hope that this encourages you to do the same. Now, one thing I will say is that the Patreon kits did not come with this paper measuring tape. I decided to pull this in from my own stash because I had pulled it down for something else and I didn't quite get it put away, and I hadn't used it in a while, and I have a huge roll of it, so I decided to pull some off just to use it in my layouts now. And I really like the look of it, and I do actually feel bad that I didn't include it in the kits because it would have been perfect, but maybe I will include it in the future for everybody. But other than that, I'm pretty much done. I'm going to add this little piece right here, and that's going to basically be it. I didn't want to go too crazy, so I hope that you have enjoyed this video. Please feel free to subscribe if you are not currently subscribed. Like this video so that YouTube and I both know the kind of videos that you like, so we can continue doing them in the future, and I will bring it up close for you guys to see the finished result. As I said, it's not complete. I want to be able to add to this, but the base and the work is done, basically. So I hope you have a great day. Thank you so much for spending some time with me, and I will catch you guys later. Thanks. Bye.